My name is Alain Lambert. I'm the CEO of Prismo Metals. Prismo has two projects in Mexico, one silver exploration play that's surrounded by Vizla Silver, one gold play, and we also have a very large copper prospect in Arizona.
Alain, good to meet you. We've not met or spoken before. So maybe let's start off as a customer on this channel to get to know you. So can you give us a sense of your background and relevant experience to what you're doing here today?
Yes, thank you for having me, Matthew. I'd be happy to do that. So my background is law and finance. I practiced law in Montreal in the mid-'80s. I love the stock market so much that in 1987, with two friends from law school, we said, let's do some capital markets advisory services, help small companies get finance, help them go public. And so I've been doing this since 1987. It's more, early on was a lot of technology plays, biotech, services engineering. And it's more recently that I got into junior exploration on the mining front.
Right. Okay. And how did you come into this, and why are you in this company, and what's your role?
So my role, and that's a key question. So my role relates to capital markets, transactions, corporate governance, driving the business forward, and I stay in that lane. We have an incredible, talented team of people. Steve Robertson, who's our president, has a long history of successful exploration. Our chief exploration officer, Craig Gibson, a doctor in geology, also has a long history of being a successful explorer. And one of our large shareholders and key advisors, a friend of mine, Peter McGaw. And that's how I really got into the mining spaces after I moved to Tucson in 2015 and met Peter. And the way we've set up the company is along those lines, Matthew. So everybody stays in their lane. I don't pretend to be a geologist. I don't try to talk geology that I don't understand. And Steve and I, we work together. We go on the road. We raise the money. We tell the story, and we work very well together because we complement. Our skills are complementary.
Right. But one thing you've all got to agree on what the business plan is. So you're sitting with two assets in Mexico and one in Arizona. Mexico, just post AMLO, people are hoping for great things, in Arizona, one of the best mining jurisdictions in the world, I'm told, regularly. How do you manage these assets, these projects of yours, in an environment like this? You obviously market cap. You're sitting, let's say, would be nice, sub $10 million market cap. Access to capital, access to cheap capital is quite tough. So how do you prioritize things, and how does it work on a sort of day-to-day basis?
Well, that's the key, isn't it? Right. So in order to fully answer your question, let me go back in time. Right. So our first key asset was a play called Palos Verdes in Mexico. So silver prospect, and that was the key asset when we went public 5 years ago. And then we became surrounded by Vizla Silver, and we all know what happened to Vizla Silver. It made great discoveries after great discoveries, wonderful guys, and very, very successful in advancing their very rich project, raising money, and so on and so forth. And in 2022, we struck a partnership with them. They started investing in our company. They currently are the largest shareholder. And we were able to raise additional capital, over $5 million at the end of 22 and 23. So we used that and said, what are we going to do with that capital? So we continued to prioritize the silver play with our partner, Vizla Silver. But then we had, I don't want to say excess capital, but more than we needed at the time. And then we made the conscious decision to diversify out of Mexico. We love Mexico as a jurisdiction, but we do understand that not everybody in the investment community share our views. And that's how we got into copper in Arizona. We felt, well, why don't we diversify outside Mexico, which is what we did. And now fast forward to today, and that part of your question, which is, well, it's a tougher environment to raise money. We were able to raise money above 50 cents. Our stock's currently 10 cents. So what do we do with that? Well, we got to have a sharp focus. You got to look at everything, which we're doing, and we'll be updating the market on our final decisions on how we're going to prioritize the dollars that we have, the dollars that we want to raise, and kind of update the business plan. It's, you know, in a market like this, Matthew, you know as well as I do, you know, entrepreneurs got to be fast. If you're not funded, you got to be very, very quick in making the appropriate changes, sharpening your focus and raising the dollars and keep advancing your projects.
Right. So when you say diversifying, do you mean looking to exit Mexico completely, or do you need that optionality still?
No, I don't think we're going to exit Mexico. We in the last the second half of 2024, our focus was to raise money to drill our what we call the Hot Breccia copper project in Arizona. And why $3 million? Because we wanted to drill 5,000 meters. They're relatively deep holes, call it 1,000 meters at the very least per hole. And so we put our efforts into raising that. We thought we had it done at the end of the year, and then the market got even softer. Our stock slipped, so we haven't raised that money to drill the Hot Breccia prospect, but that remains our priority. So that's where most of our efforts are dedicated to. And then you got to think, well, we love Mexico still. We like these projects, but, are there any carrying costs to these projects, and what are they, and what kind of deals can you do? And but no, we're gonna stay in Mexico.
You're gonna stay in Mexico. And I do appreciate this conversation in the backdrop of, you got to be in the game to play the game. It has been a tough market, and maybe some folks like to hunker down, some folks like to move things along slowly, and others think, of other ways that kind of change the business plan and strategy. So just sticking with Mexico, Scott, because I kind of want to park them up and get on to Arizona, if you don't mind. So with regards to the Palos Verde, the JV with Vizla Silver, what are you obliged to do? Have they provided all the money and giving you management fees, or how do the economics look?
Okay, so we don't have a JV with them. The idea at the beginning, when they made their first investment in Prismo, which was in early 2023, and it was for $2 million, the deal was described as a strategic relationship, and so they took their interest in our company. We obviously use those dollars to keep drilling and advancing the project, and which we have done, and then we gave them a few rights. So if they maintain their ownership, they keep a right of first refusal on the asset. They have the right to a representative on our board of directors. So they're our largest shareholder and strategic partner. And if they continue to participate, to maintain their interest in our shares, we will use all those dollars to advance the project, Palos Verdes, in Mexico.
So they paid to get inside the tent. Okay. What's the natural conclusion here? I mean, because your land bank versus their land bank, clearly there's discussions to be had, but not a lot of competitive tension when it comes to your negotiating powers, it would seem. So how do you maximize the value that you can get from this?
Well, so there are two ways to look at it, right? One can say, well, we want to keep drilling it as much as we can to get a better understanding of what's there, and then the value is going to go up. And then we're also realistic. Look at it from their perspective, right? So, how much would they pay for our position, and when, right? So we do know that it's an important part of the district. It's a very rich part of the district. It in itself constitutes another discovery. But until they have a mill to feed or something like this, you're totally right. Why would they pay up for that? Now, that being said, we truly feel that this this asset alone is worth more than just our market cap.
For sure at some point, but I think it's always good to be kind of clear with your shareholders or prospective people coming in that here's how we play this one, right? So it's a longer term hold, but there's some real value to this. No, nothing wrong with that. Can we just, and again, finish off Mexico with Los Pavitos? What's the situation there?
So Los Pavitos is a very large gold prospect. When we created the company 5 years ago, that was held by Minera Cascabel, which is Peter Migaw's company in Mexico. And it was really a concept, if you will. And we did a lot of work on the property. We took it to the drilling stage, and we liked what we saw. But given its size, it's 5,300 hectares. There are carrying costs attached to that, right? So taxes and minimum exploration, not towards Cascabel, because we have met those obligations, but to the government, you got to keep exploring. So we got to see what we're going to do. We're evaluating everything, and see what those costs are. And the question that we haven't answered, but we're asking ourselves is, is that money better put to use, let's say, on advancing Palos Verdes or the drilling at Hot Breccia?
Right. Okay. I mean, are you in the process of trying to potentially find? Actually, I don't know how much data you've got there, and therefore I don't know what type of conversations you're capable of having there with regards to using someone else's balance sheet. So, what have you tried on that side of things?
Well, so for us, I would say we're finalizing a strategic review of everything we've got, and we're at a point, or close to a point, where we're going to make final decisions and announce to our shareholders where the priorities are going to be this year, right? Well, it's going to be no surprise that the priority is going to be Hot Breccia, and we remain dedicated to advancing that project through drilling. But we'll provide visibility on a few other things, and then Matthew, let me give you another example of what I mean by everything needs to be all the cards need to be on the table, all the options need to be explored. So our Hot Breccia project in Arizona is surrounded by all the large mining companies in the world. Freeport's there, BHP, Rio Tinto, Sarco, which is Grupo Mexico. Everybody's there. And in fact, our immediate neighbor to the north of that property is Freeport, and where they have the Christmas mine, which is no longer in production, but they still hold that ground and everything around it. So any of my shareholders, I would think, would expect me to be talking to those neighbors, in addition to my effort to raise money to go drill. And then when you get in a tougher market like we are now, and you and I can talk about how the disconnect between commodity prices and the unavailability of capital, or difficulty to raise capital at their lower end of the market caps of exploration companies. Then when you're in that spot, then you say, well, do I prioritize a deal with a major? Do I keep focusing on raising the money? Do I do both? And so on and so forth, right? So all of those discussions we're having those discussions inside Prismo, like all the shareholders, would expect us to.
Yeah, no, and I think that makes a lot of sense. What we saw last year was a lot of companies recognizing that and saying, look, we're going to have to change this business model because, definition of insanity, etc. Where the retail money isn't around. No one's interested. Everyone's been burnt. I think recently, so it doesn't. The industry has not helped itself, has not covered itself in glory. Maybe going to some of these mid-tiers and seniors seems to be the way that people are finding a way around this. I mean, what's your take when you're sort of scanning this? But you've obviously ended up at that point. But what was your take last year in terms of access to capital and the types of new models that you were seeing, which seem to be working?
Yeah, what we're seeing is a combination of factors. So let's look at speculative money as a whole. Where's the speculative money going? Well, it's chasing volatile assets and so and stocks. So they go into quantum computing, they go into AI. So that takes a lot of the speculative money out of the junior market. Then you have, say, the more deep-pocketed investors. What do? Well, they continue to support the companies in which they're already invested and help them keep moving those projects forward, as opposed to taking new bets, right? And so the combination of these two factors and many others, I think, is just what's restricting the availability of capital. Now, that being said, a company like us, we can keep raising money, and it's the quantum, right? And who do you go to? Because we also have people who've supported us for a long time, and they'll be more than happy to reinvest. So capital is available to us, but $3 million to drill a new prospect is a different proposition than, let's say, raising less and putting it into a known asset like the silver play in Mexico, Palos Verdes.
Yeah, no, I can see that. So what do we know about Hot Breccia? I mean, what data did you pick up when you came in? What have you been able to work out yourselves in terms of reinterpreting data?
So Hot Breccia was drilled in the 70s. It was drilled by Kennecott, which is a subsidiary of Rio Tinto. And then there's a gentleman in Tucson, Dr. Linus Keating, who's also a friend of Peter McGaw. And I've had the pleasure of meeting him. So he worked at Kennecott. He saw all of the cores, reassayed some of the cores, and eventually the core from the drill holes of the 70s were sent to the dump. So those disappeared. And after Linus retired, he just kept remembering these cores and the project itself, and he decided to stake the project. So we're optioning the project from him. And there are various memos that are available for past work. We don't have the assay for most of the holes. We do have all of the technical information and assay results from hole number 1. And then we ran a Z-Town study, so geophysical work, and found a very large anomaly. And then we hired a AI firm that is in the business of, if you will, fine-tuning the geophysical data, and they kind of confirm what everybody else was saying is there, and it's right that anomaly is just like almost right where the past drilling was. It just happens that, according to our technical team, the 70s drilling didn't go deep enough. They all encountered interesting mineralization, but they didn't go deep enough to hit the sweet spot, which is what the ZTEM study has identified.
Right. Okay. So you've got some data, reinterpret it. What do you think you're going to need to present to be able to go and have a conversation with? I think you said it was Freeport above you, because that was obviously the natural conversation to be had, and you may be speaking to lots of others as well. But big companies must be approached all day, every day. What do they turn around and say to you? You need to do with the $3 million specifically,
right? So if you look at the most recent discoveries in copper, these are deep-seated, hidden copper deposits. The largest undeveloped, unmined copper deposit in the world is just up the road from us. It's called Resolution. It's a joint venture between Rio Tinto and BHP, and it's 1.2 kilometers down. And the companies that joint ventures are already spent billions in getting the infrastructure ready for it. It's not ready to mine. And the consensus among the people that I talk to is that that's what the big players are going to focus on, right? To find these deep-seated, large and rich copper deposits. everybody that we talk to, from investors to technical people to potential partners, recognize that the Hot Breccia prospect is a very large prospect. It's in a favorable environment, and from an infrastructure standpoint, it's ideally located. It's right by a smelter. There's there's major highway that goes through the property. There's water. There's electricity, and the entire. Like, let me give you an example. I mean, I live in Vancouver. I have a house in Tucson. I spend the winter in Tucson with my wife. It's literally an hour 15 from my couch to the property boundary. I can get on the property with my Jeep, and so it's very, very favorable infrastructure. And so when you talk, and the interesting thing, Matthew, is when you talk to the majors, how are they going to react? Well, that's I think everybody was happily surprised when Barrick took a major interest in Hercules Silver, right now Hercules Metals, and they were very quick in taking an equity position with some rights attached to that. And I think that made the entire market, kind of rethink the approach of maybe starting a little bit and so on and so forth. Let's support this junior, and so I think that the majors are more open to all sorts of different types of conversation when it comes to securing what could be the next big copper play in our part of the world, anyways.
Right, and obviously, I guess they're aware. This is like we're talking about some 400 meters down, and their I guess expectations around tonnage and grade, based on historic drill results, it means that they're still interested. That this is within their remit, within their tolerance. Is it?
Yes, and what I can say, Matthew, is every time we go to a conference, be it VRIC or PDAC, all the majors are there, right? And they do have people that, what they do is, look for projects all day long. And I can tell you that all of the majors know our project, not because we have it, because it's a known prospective area that was drilled by Kennecott in the 70s, and it's adjacent to the Christmas mine. So the geological features of Christmas mines are well known. It was in operation for like 80 years. And so the majors are aware we're there. They're, interested in finding out how we're going to advance the project. And we're pleased to have these discussions with them.
Okay, and do you, what do you like? I'm conscious you're a lawyer and on the money side, but just because I was talking to someone earlier in the week about brecciated porphyry. So I know with Hot Breccia, clues in the title, I suppose. Are there any indications of deeper porphyry style mineralization in this?
Yes. So the breccias, as my friend Peter McGill would describe it, their Mother Nature's sampling program, right? What's a breccia in our space? Well, think about a very dynamic explosion, geological event that brought to the surface the materials that are down below, right? So we did find some breccias, and you look at the breccias, they contain minerals that are not supposed to be on surface. They're supposed to be in the bottom, right? And they come from certain stratigraphic formations. So you say, okay, well, this is a nice breccia, and it's brought to the surface very rich, copper-rich minerals, and we've identified those, and so on and so forth, right? So we have that, and if you look at, let's say, resolution and what we think we have, it's a big porphyry system with a combination of high grade skarn attached to it. So it's kind of both, right? And there's a lot of and well, I know Peter and follow him, but is carbonate replacement deposit type specialist, and so there's some of that's taken place, we believe, underneath our project.
Right. Okay. So have you done any work on the geochemical or structural indicators?
Yes,
Or
yes,
you have?
we've done a lot of mapping and sampling on surface.
Okay,
We have some of these fragments that come from down below that grade, in one case, 5.6% copper. So we know that there's a rich system down there. We just got to go drill it and find it.
right. Okay, and in terms of those kind of hydrothermal alterations and mineralization systems, again, has there been much work done on that? Any sort of interpretation on that?
Yes, we do. We do, Matthew. And
Okay.
maybe as a follow-up, I'd be happy to
Get
introduce
get get
and
your
you
technical guy and my technical guy together.
Yeah, we'll get your technical guy to talk to mine. How's that?
Yeah, yeah. Have your people talk to my people.
But more,
Yeah,
but just more to give you a more general answer to your question is that so we think we got a great technical team, as I said at the onset, right? So Dr. Peter McGaw, Dr. Linus Keating, Dr. Craig Gibson, Steve Robertson, and so these guys do things the way it's supposed to be done, right? So the answer to your question is yes, and why, and what have they done? Well, they've done everything that they needed to do to bring the project to its current stage, which is ready to drill.
okay.
And I might say it's fully permitted, right? So we got the permit last. Yeah.
And to that end, obviously, the drill program targeting has been done, and they've prioritized the order of what, 5 plant holes? How many plant holes did you say?
Well, we want to do 5,000 meters.
Yeah.
Is it going to be 5 holes of 1,000? Is it going to be 4 holes of 1,250? That
Okay.
the
Okay.
drill bit would tell us that, right? And
Okay.
yeah.
And what's the time frame of you? Or is that again to be announced? At what
So
period?
well,
When do
we
you
need
start? When do you think you'll
yeah.
finish? I don't know what the seasonality is like there.
So we will start once we get the money. Okay. So we have identified a driller. Prices are very favorable to companies like us because while the big drillers still have plenty of work, those who deal with junior companies are not as busy, so prices are good. And but if you drill 1,000, 1,200 meter holes, I mean that's these things are going to take a while, so you're probably looking at call it a month a hole, and so let's say we did 4 holes, so then you got to take the core out, you got to send it to the lab, you got to get the assays back, and Matthew, the very important question is, what does a company like us do? Do you release the results hole by hole, or do you do what I know that Dr. McGaw favors and Steve Robertson is to get all of the results, look at them as a whole, and what's that picture telling you, and then you release that to the market. I'm not saying that that's what we're going to do, but that's certainly a debate that we're going to have internally.
Yeah, and I guess with deep holes, it has a sort of slightly more complex success rate, shall we say? And I guess you'd want to be able to have time without the pressure of doing it hole by hole. Yeah, okay, we'll see. In terms of this AI, the Zentech, ZTech surveys type stuff, how does that work in terms of helping you identify, prioritizing the order in which you get after these targets?
So what AI does is it takes the geophysical data, and then we can input variables, right? So as an example, an obvious one. Well, this area is outside our property, so don't run anything here, right? Because I'm not going to drop, and then say, well, we want to limit the drilling to 1,500 meters and so on and so on. And then the computers reprocess that with millions of different scenarios. So it takes the existing data, refines it, and it in our case, it confirmed what our geologists had already concluded, and with the exception that it reminded us, if you're, if you're at 1,200 meters drilling down and you're in favorable mineralization, just keep going, because, or for 1,000, so maybe the prize, which is this incredibly large prize of which is resolution, 1,200 meters down, right? So they kept going, and then they found the big prize, and so the AI is saying, just be careful not to stop too early. So that was probably the number one thing that stood out from that reprocessing. Everything else was, well, like the whole locations that it proposed, and the whole locations are proposed based on the possibility of hitting the jackpot, if you will, if you drill there in a certain direction and at a certain depth. And those whole locations were all sort of very close to where we had drilling locations permitted, but it did refine a little bit where we're going to drill.
Right, and is there a little bit of it? You're saying we'll take the historic whole data, we'll run it through Z10 AI the heck out of it, and we'll end up effectively twinning to kind of get confirmation, or are you going to be brave and kind of step out considerably? I mean, how's the management team fed in their own data into that whole data set, or thinking into that data set, I should say?
Right. So let me say both. However, I'd be careful using the word twinning, but I do know what you mean. So I would describe it more as drilling close to a pass drill hole for which we don't have all of the assay results, right? So it wouldn't be like twinning, because we don't really know exactly what's there. And number two, our hole that let's say we would drill close to an existing hole will go much deeper down, right? So you could say that the location's very close, yes. You could say that, the first part of the hole, we sort of kind of know what's there, but not really, yes. But then, the sweet spot, the prize, is deeper than when it was drilled in the 70s.
Right. I guess what I'm saying is,
we'll step out for one. There's one that we were considering, and the AI said that's a good idea. But, I think it's like 150 meters step out from maybe 200.
Yeah, but there's a bit of comfort. In fact, I've invested into funded drilling on a project. We inherited like 28,000 meters of historic drilling, and we needed to confirm whether we could trust that data or not, or whether we're starting again. So that's why I ask. It's a sort of delicate dance that you've got to do. You don't want to spend a lot of money to say, yeah, that's correct. What you want to do is find additional stuff. But at the same time, that proof point is necessary expense. Okay. In terms of additional information which you may have inherited or acquired with this, were there any sort of metallurgical tests done in the past that you've been able to access as well? Just trying to understand what you've got, because it's great finding it, but if you can't process it, it doesn't really help.
No. So again, the cores have been destroyed, but Linus Keating, who owns the claims that we optioned them from him, has seen the core, and he's a doctor in geology and those types of systems. And then we did acquire all of the data of hole number 1, so we have that top to bottom. But for the other holes, we only have summaries of what was found there. But good enough information to make us optimistic. And then we did a lot of surface work, a lot of mapping, a lot of sampling. And we have a very good understanding of geological system there, and there are a lot of reports. It's an area. Remember, Matthew, I'm in the it's in the area that where the majors have been working for 100 years, and so there's a lot of public information. And then when we acquired all of the data for hole number 1, it came also with a lot of unpublished reports that we didn't have, that were published at the time that Kennecott drilled in the 70s.
Right, and so based on that sort of neurology data set, is this likely to be in terms of the extraction component or processing method? Is it likely to be flotation, heat leach, other way? I mean, what's it look like? Just give me a sense of what could be further down the line, or if all things go well.
Yeah, like that question gives me the opportunity to say that in our view, that's going to be somebody else's problem, right? So in what I'm not being flippant. Let me explain what I mean by that. So it's at those depths, those types of deposits probably going to be block cave mining, and that's what they're going to do at Resolution, which is you mine from the bottom up. It's a multi-billion dollar game, and at Prismo we're an exploration company, so we want to find the prize and let somebody else develop it. So if you look at Resolution, I mean it's been found for 15 years, billions have been thrown at it, and they're still not in production. Now they've had a few issues that they'd have to deal with. There was a land swap approved by the first Trump administration and got ripped up by the Biden administration, which slowed down the development even more. But everybody's optimistic that with Trump being back in the White House, that land swap deal is going to be re-signed, reinstated, and they'll be taking ore out of Resolution. And when that gets going, that deposit, which is 40 kilometers up the road from us, is going to represent 25% of the U.S. copper production. It's that big.
Right. Okay. I got lots of questions around infrastructure and logistics, but I think, given the amount of big name miners around you, I suspect that logistics is not going to be an issue specifically.
No,
Well,
and as I was saying, Matthew, right by our property is a smelter, right? It's owned by Grupo Mexico. I mean, they're not using it now. They had a few years ago. They had problems with the unions. Although last year they said that they were having discussions with the union, could be back on track. There's a concentrator, train lines, but that's for the very large Ray mine, which is an open pit thing. So, but yes, I mean the infrastructure is there, all the majors are there. So, hopefully we find the prize and turn it over to a big guy.
Right. So many more questions. But I'm also conscious of time. Look, I tell you what, it'd be great to have you kind of back on and maybe kind of rip this, because I think it's interesting. Once people sort of understand how you're playing this and what your focus is, it's better to understand, how they should value. It's easier for them to understand how you value, or they should value the company. So these 4, 5, 6 holes, as you say, will maybe be the makers of you in 2025. So Alain, appreciate your time today. Thank you very much. I'd love to keep talking to you. I think we could be another hour on this. So we will let you go, and do stay in touch and let us know how you go on, please.
Thanks for having me, Matthew.